I think we can all agree that out of the box, Windows 10 is much better than Windows 11, but it's still not perfect. By default, it still has ads in the start menu, widgets on the taskbar, forced Microsoft Edge and OneDrive integration, and constant notifications. And while you can disable or prevent some of these annoyances manually, it usually requires some technical knowledge and expertise that not all users have. That's why I created Winhance, the Windows Enhancement utility, so you can effortlessly make Windows better and set it up the way you want to. Now, since the support for Windows 10 has already ended, the main focus of Winhance is Windows 11. But it does work on Windows 10 too. And in this video, I'll be showing you how I would set up Windows 10 using Winhance, or Winhance, if you prefer to pronounce it that way. I've already created a very detailed video of how Winhance works on Windows 11, and I don't want to repeat myself again in this video, since Winhance works exactly the same on Windows 10 and Windows 11. But you'll see some different settings when running Winhance on Windows 10 compared to Windows 11, because there are just some things you can do on Windows 10 that's not possible on Windows 11 anymore. Now, I'll link to that detailed demo video down in the description and at the end of this video if you want to check it out. Before we get to Winhance, let me just show you what I'm working with here in terms of Windows 10. This is the stock and default Windows 10 Pro version 22H2 with the default start menu, default taskbar with widgets, notifications enabled, File Explorer opening to quick access instead of this PC, and the 3D objects folder in this PC. And in terms of performance and resource usage, this is what it currently looks like in Task Manager before applying the recommended settings with Winhance. Now to get started, you can download Winhance from its official downloads page, run the installer, choose between a normal or portable installation, and then continue and finalize the installation. Now that Winhance is launched, the first thing that I would do to set up this version of Windows 10 is to import the recommended config file by clicking on the config import button up here. This is going to be the fastest way to get the best settings for Winhance applied based on the version of Windows it's running on. So before actually applying the config file, you can review and make changes to the groups or categories of settings that'll be applied, and also choose if you want to clean the taskbar, the start menu, and apply the default Windows wallpaper, and so on. I'm going to leave all of these checkboxes selected except for the external software section, and then proceed with applying the recommended config file. Here on this screen, I can see which apps are going to be removed during this process, and I'm happy with all of that, so I'll just continue. Now, Winhance is going to apply the config file, which has the best settings for Windows 10 in this case. This process usually takes a minute or two depending on the performance of the computer it's running on. Now that it's done, let's first do a restart on the computer so that all of the changes can properly take effect, and then we'll take a look at some of the changes that are made. Okay, now that we're back, first off, if I open File Explorer, you should notice that it now opens to this PC directly instead of quick access, and I now also have dark mode applied. The 3D objects folder we had before has also been removed, and file extensions and hidden files and folders are now also shown. I've now also got a completely clean taskbar, and all of the items that were here before have been unpinned, and the widgets have also been removed. You might also notice that the taskbar is smaller than usual, and that all of the system tray icons are shown by default. Notifications have also been disabled. If I open the start menu, you'll notice that just like on the taskbar, all of the pinned items that were here before have been unpinned, and it's now clean and just displays a list of all of the installed apps. Now, if I scroll down on this list, you'll notice that a lot of the bloatware apps and ads that were here before are gone now, including Microsoft Edge and OneDrive. In terms of performance and resource usage after applying the recommended config file, this is what it currently looks like in Task Manager. Now, there are way more changes that have been made than what I'm showing here, and that's because most of them are things you can't visually see change in Windows. But if I open Winhance again, and then navigate to the optimization screen, I'll have access to all of the settings that were applied that I can't necessarily see in Windows. While this might change in the future, the current version of the optimization screen has these categories. You've got privacy and security settings, power settings, gaming and performance settings, Windows update settings, notification settings, and sound settings. So if you wanted to revert any of the specific settings that were applied by the recommended config, you can do so here. There's also a customization screen, And this is primarily for settings that you can visually see change in Windows. Here you've got Windows theme settings, taskbar settings, start menu settings, and file explorer settings. In Winhance, you also have a filter button in the main window up here that, when toggled, will show the settings that have been filtered out and that aren't available on your version of Windows. Just thought I'd mention that too. But remember how I said earlier in the video that there are some things that's possible on Windows 10 that's just not possible on Windows 11 anymore? One of these things is the ability to make the taskbar transparent, which is something that I love to do. On Windows 10, you can do this with a simple registry entry, but that's been removed in Windows 11. And although you can still make the taskbar transparent with third-party apps like Translucent TB, Windhawk, or Start Allback, I liked the fact that it could be done without installing a third-party app. So what I like to do on Windows 10 is to enable the transparent taskbar. This will also automatically enable the transparency effects setting in the Windows theme settings, since it must be enabled for the taskbar to be transparent. I also like to keep the taskbar small and then move the taskbar to the top of the screen, which is another thing that has been removed on the latest versions of Windows 11. On Windows 10, you can simply right-click on the taskbar and unlock it. Then click on the taskbar and drag it to the part of the screen where you want it to be at. I prefer it to be at the top because browser tabs are at the top. So if I want to navigate to something on the taskbar, it's right there. It's just more convenient for me this way, but that is personal preference. Now, this is the setup I had on Windows 10 before I switched over to Windows 11. And over there on Windows 11, I now have the same setup, but I use a third-party app called Start Allback to move the taskbar to the top of the screen and to make it transparent. I've made a dedicated video about it before, and I'll link it in the description below if you want to check it out. But if I was still using Windows 10 as my daily driver, this is the way I would set it up. And it's really easy to do with Winhance. But the beauty of Winhance is you can use it to set up Windows the way you want to. So if you prefer to use the default taskbar with no transparency and place it at the bottom of the screen, you can do just that. Now, as part of the recommended config, Microsoft Edge was removed, like I explained before, and in case you don't have any browser installed and you have no way to browse the web or download any other software, then you can navigate to the software app section and then go to the external software section. Here you'll find a bunch of third-party apps that's really useful. And as an example, I'm just going to install the Brave browser because that's what I'm using myself at this point in time. Winhance will download and install the software using winget in many cases, and then you'll be able to use it. Also, if you navigate to the Windows Apps section, most of the Windows apps that were removed during the config import process can also be reinstalled using Winhance. And I advise you to reinstall any of these items with Winhance so that it can also update any of the removal scripts to ensure that the items aren't automatically removed the next time you start up Windows. Because Winhance actually does continuous removal of the applications, and it's not just a one-time removal. But that's not all that Winhance has to offer. It also has advanced tools where you can generate an auto-unattended XML file based on your app and settings selections in Winhance. And then you can use the Windows Installation Media utility to create a custom Windows ISO file with an auto-unattend XML file and the device drivers already included. Windows will then be debloated, optimized, and customized during the installation process via the settings that are defined in the XML file, and the drivers will also be installed automatically. But if you want to know more about that, I suggest checking out the detailed Winhance demo video that I'm going to link at the end of this video, and that's linked in the description down below. Now, Winhance is a personal project that I'm working on as a solo developer, and I prefer it that way and I want it to stay that way. But in order for it to stay that way and for it to stay viable for me, I am dependent on the community to support the project financially. So if you're able to make a donation when prompted, please do, as every little bit helps tremendously. And if you're watching this and you've already made a donation, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And if you're watching this and you're unable to make a donation, please like and share this video and tell a friend about Winhance. It also helps more than you know. But with that being said, I hope you found this video and my work useful. If you want to see an in-depth breakdown on Winhance, you can watch the next video on screen as I go into way more detail about Winhance in that video. And as always, I just want to give a shout out to all of my YouTube members. I appreciate the support, and I'll talk to all of you guys soon.